Before I say anything, because I don't want this video to be taken the wrong way in the slightest, I need to state that I'm making this video from the perspective of somebody who has been an Xbox fan since 2002? Yeah, early 2002 at that. Whatever the earliest date you could pretty much get an Xbox in the UK. That's pretty much, I've been on board since then. I know fanboy culture is pretty heated right now, and I hope that nobody takes this video and uses clips of it out of context, although my channel isn't anywhere near popular enough to penetrate that echo chamber. So here's the thing. As I said, I've been rocking with Xbox for quite some time now. Basically 20 years at this point. I've owned every console, played pretty much every single exclusive they've put out. I signed up to Xbox Live before there were even really any games on it to play other than stuff like MotoGP and MechAssault, and basically before Halo 2 is what I'm saying. And I have just shy of 200,000 gamer score points or whatever. So I'm talking as a fan. But I got to thinking about the upcoming year, where things currently stand, and part of me feels like next year, 2023, is a super important one for Xbox as a brand. And the reason I say this is because they've not had the best time over the last few years. And when I say that, I'm referring to big exclusives. Obviously, Game Pass is great. Obviously, the work that they've done with backwards compatibility is great. The work they've done to make that whole ecosystem of, if you own the game here, then you own the game there. And they've done a lot of great work in terms of infrastructure and services. But in terms of exclusive games, and big exclusive games at that, they've sort of been struggling. And if I'm not mistaken, Phil Spencer said pretty much the same in a recent interview. Obviously, the industry changes over time, and to a certain degree, I'm willing to accept that the only people banging on about big AAA exclusives and how important they are is just people like me, who are sort of nostalgic for the late 90s, early 2000s. The last few years, and especially this year, hasn't been great. This year, Microsoft hasn't released a big AAA, shiny, you've got to buy a console for this exclusive. They haven't released a God of War, a Horizon. Obviously, Halo came out tail end of last year, and, well, I discussed how that went in my last video. But if you don't care about Game Pass, I wouldn't say that this year they've given you a ton of reasons to pick up an Xbox. I understand why that is. I understand that they made a lot of changes during the Don Matrick period where they were trying to, the Xbox One, as it was titled, was supposed to be the one system in your home. It was supposed to be for TV, movies, games, music, all that kind of thing. And they were trying to shift during that period, and it didn't work out for them. And Phil Spencer came in, I want to say, Phil Spencer's maybe been in there 5 years now, and he's tried to turn the ship around back to focus on games. And he's made a lot of good moves and made a lot of good decisions. And to be fair, I think he's a very likeable guy. He seems fairly honest and upfront about everything. And in that time, they've also made a lot of acquisitions. And the acquisitions are still going on, of course, because I'm sure it's not escaped your attention that they're currently trying to buy Activision. But they've put a lot of money into getting studios under their Xbox family, or just starting whole brand new studios from scratch. And we're reaching the point now where we really should start to see the results of all of that money that they threw around a few years ago. And when you have the last 2 years that were somewhat quiet, and they had their Xbox showcase in the summer, where they very clearly focused on here's what's coming out over the next 12 months, so from summer of 2022 all the way up to summer of 2023. There was a reason why they didn't talk about what's going on in the second half of 2023 and early 2024, because they probably don't know yet, or they want to play it safe and don't want to write anything in stone just yet and then have to push something back or delay anything. But I was sort of looking at the list of all the upcoming stuff that we currently know about. So working down the list and going through the first few things that we kind of know about and are fairly confident we've seen a little bit of, for example. So Starfield was originally meant to come out in November of this year, didn't they? Yeah, they put like a solid date on that thing, and then they had to push it back. Now I'm fine with things getting pushed back. Whatever time you need to put that thing together and make it as best as possible, fine, whatever, go for it. I'm fairly confident Starfield is going to be a pretty cool game, although because it's coming from Bethesda and is very much in that vein of Elder Scrolls, Fallout, big open world RPG, it looks like one of those type of games, but in space. So if you're not really on board for that type of experience, then it doesn't look like that's going to change anybody's mind, but happy to check that out. Think it's going to be cool. We also have Redfall, which, as far as I can tell, Redfall doesn't actually have a firm release date. That game looks cool. I'm a big fan of everything that Arcane has put together so far. Although I am a fan of co-op experiences, I'm not a huge fan of experiences that I feel like I'm missing out on the best version of the game if I'm not playing co-op. Now, I think the only other concrete release we have for 2023 is Stalker 2. Stalker 2 gets a 100% clear, no questions asked pass because of obviously all the terrible things going on in that part of the world right now. So whatever those developers have to do to stay safe and finish that game when you want to finish that game, it's certainly not the most important thing going on in your part of the world right now. So yeah, Redfall, Starfield, Stalker 2, I think, I could be mistaken, and there may be some information that I missed along the way, but I think they're the only things that are confirmed. And then you kind of move over to the other bracket of announced games, which includes stuff like Hellblade 2, which I thought the first Hellblade was a really fun game, and I'm super interested to see what they can put together when they're given another shot at it. The trouble for me, and it's funny actually, let me just jump in here because I'm literally recording this the morning before the Game Awards. All of this stuff I'm talking about could be wiped out because who knows what could be announced later this evening. Anyway, back to Hellblade 2. So to the best of my knowledge, that was, I think, initially revealed actually at the Game Awards in 2019. No firm announcements of a release date. And also, let me preface everything with, I understand if developers and publishers want to keep things a secret or keep things fairly under wraps up until the last minute. So I'm a little concerned about that game and how it's coming along, just because we've heard nothing. Another game in that vein, State of Decay 3. There was a CG trailer of woman going hunting in the woods with all like zombified animals. And it was literally just, CG trailer and then title card. State of Decay 3 has come in, and that was it. And again, to the best of my knowledge, not heard a single thing since. If you want another one in there, Fable. The upcoming remake, reboot, whatever it is that Playground Games is working on, that was revealed in 2020 with a CG trailer that had a title card. And again, ever since then, nothing. And even since then, I think I've heard there's been chatter and rumours, so, take all this with a pinch of salt. There has been talk of the developers of the upcoming Fable game making the decision to restructure things in quite a heavy way and working with another developer. I like Fable, and I'd be happy to see it come back, but boy, is that an interesting scenario, considering that I'm pretty sure Playground Games has only made those Forza Horizon games so far, and that's about it. So that's a pretty big shift from we focus on making the cars go fast to we're building an open world medieval RPG thing. But we'll see how it goes. But again, we've not heard anything in just over 2 years now. We've also got Everwild, which is in development from Rare. We got a trailer for that 2 to 3 years ago. No follow-up trailer since. The Sea of Thieves stuff keeps rolling out, but we've heard not a lot on that game. So yeah, we've also got Avowed, which is coming from Obsidian. And Obsidian have had a pretty good track record so far with Xbox and all of the stuff that they've put out. But Avowed, another CG trailer a couple years back, and not heard much since. I almost forgot about the Indiana Jones game as well. What was that? A teaser trailer back in 2021? I think it was. Not much since. No further trailers, and I don't know if they're putting all of these trailers together to just be like, hey, we're working on this, hey, we're working on that, but just to put people on notice that stuff is in development. But another teaser trailer and not much information since. The biggest one of the bunch is arguably the Project Dark reboot, because we had a trailer for that, and the talk around that game was Microsoft was putting together this brand new studio. It was going to be the first ever quadruple A game. I'm not sure what that means. I'm assuming it just translates to we dumped a whole load of money into this, and they were recruiting from all sorts of places like Rockstar and Naughty Dog. They were snatching up talent all over the place. I'm pretty sure I saw some news broke about some people leaving, and then there was a partnership with Crystal Dynamics, which I know these big games take a lot of people to make, but part of me wonders, is that a partnership that they made because it was a good idea, or they made because they had to? So I hope you see what I'm getting at here, is that there's a lot of announcements, but not much. There's not a ton of information that has followed it since over the last couple of years. Sorry, I did miss one off there, which was Forza Motorsport 8. Forza Motorsport 8 looks very nice and shiny. I'm in no rush to play Forza Motorsport 8. I think it's for a very specific crowd. Basically what I'm saying is I don't think anybody's rushing out to buy an Xbox because, oh look, the Ferrari looks really nice. And I don't mean to say that in any... I don't mean to downplay any of the efforts of Turn 10 or anybody who has, worked on that game. I think it's just made for a very specific crowd, and it's a very well-made game for a very specific crowd. The same way I don't think anybody's rushing out to buy a PS5 to play Gran Turismo, but I could be wrong. Now, I think the only one I haven't mentioned so far is Outer Worlds 2. We got a teaser CG announcement trailer for that not too long ago. I'm really happy they're making a second one, but I don't see that coming in the next 18 months. And on top of that, Gears 5 came out over 3 years ago now. Now, it is my understanding that Gears 6 is being made on the latest Unreal Engine, so it's probably going to take a little time to put together as they're kind of building things from the ground up again. And whatever the next Halo game is, as I mentioned in my last video, but again, if that thing touches store shelves before 2025, I'd be very surprised. And so I look at this list, and part of me thinks, is there an issue over at Xbox of how they're handling their studios, or have they just ran into a lot of bad luck trying to get stuff off the ground? Developing games is a tough business. I'm fully aware that there's 100 roadblocks and speed bumps that you've got to go over and through to get a game out there, even the bad ones. But if 2023 isn't a strong one in terms of the list that I just referenced of games that we're aware of, like, can Xbox afford to not have, how many years can Xbox afford to do this? Or are they just putting all of their chips into Game Pass and services like that, where they just sort of hope that the cheapness of it and the efficiency of it and the seamlessness of the whole thing is just eventually going to win everybody over? But as an Xbox fan from 2002, this was what I came to the console for and what I stuck around for, and the reason I've been part of its ecosystem for so long, in the hopes that it would kind of get itself back on track. Because when the console originally launched 20 years ago, and to a certain extent this point is somewhat irrelevant because things change over 2 decades, I don't know if you know that, but the focus at the start of this whole journey for Microsoft was putting out the biggest and best games possible. And I'm sure Phil Spencer is working away doing his absolute best to make sure they get back to that again. But it just feels like there seems to be too much evidence of things not quite coming together. Hopefully it's that whole waiting for a bus scenario. But it has got me thinking about, how does 2023 play out for Xbox? What impact would it have on their brand, on their console sales, on their, especially as well, because I think Phil Spencer not too long ago said that he's pretty much sold Game Pass to everybody who's going to buy it, on console at least. Everybody who owns an Xbox console that could buy Game Pass owns or has owned Game Pass. So I don't want to be dramatic and say, oh, that well is going to dry up. I just kind of mean they've expanded as far as they possibly can with selling Game Pass to console owners. But what I'm trying to say is that from Phil Spencer's own comments, it sounds like they have won over all of the people that they possibly can based on the Game Pass sales angle. Now it's time to win more people over with, you need to play this game because you can't play it anywhere else sales angle. But I do worry about what happens if Xbox stumbles across these next couple of years. And that's pretty much all I've got to say on that one. So another video with no real point. Just me talking into a microphone. But, you know, what else am I going to do with my free time? Anyway, I've been Inept saying, you as always have been a wonderful audience, and I hope to see you next time.